This prepares them for the range shelters. As early as possible and as soon as the chicks are fully feathered, get them out on pasture and provide them with range shelters. This usually can be done during the last week of April or the first week of May. Separate the pullets from the cockerels and have the shelters far enough apart so that the two sexes will not mix. Each shelter accommodates 100 birds and should be so spaced that each 100 birds will have a quarter acre of pasture. By providing good pasture, you are allowing nature herself to help the birds develop. Young grass, alfalfa, or clover supply a good portion of the proteins and vitamins required for growth. These will supplement your grains to quite an extent and thus cut down your cost of feeding. But don't overlook the importance of keeping your birds supplied with growing mash as well. This is when you are really building the foundation of your laying flock. A little more than straight grain and pasture is a great help. Provide shade for the hot weather, and for this purpose, early planting of sunflower plants or corn is good practice. A grove of trees is satisfactory, provided the birds are moved the next year, for trees harbor disease from one year to another. Don't pasture birds more than once in 3 years on the same land. The earth itself may become contaminated. Good pasture should be provided all summer. In many cases, therefore, it is necessary to sow rye or oats in the middle of June and again in July to supply the birds with tender young shoots, because by that time the grass or alfalfa will be too coarse. Pasture and grain is better for your birds than grain alone. For a complete balance, however, a developing mash should be fed along with the grain to produce strong, vigorous pullets. Weather permitting, the pullets are left on the range until some start laying. Then they are thoroughly culled, because only the good birds should go into the laying house. There's no place for weaklings there. Individual birds are inspected for good bone development, deep keels, depth of body, and breadth of frame. These are the kind of birds that will stand up under the strain of continuous high egg production. Smaller, underdeveloped birds like this one won't make any money when kept over the winter. Therefore, the only thing to do is to fatten them up and sell them for what they will bring. That's the cheapest in the long run. Range cockerels don't carry much fat. To put on the required fat and finish, they and the cull pullets are placed in fattening crates. If you have no crates, use small pens to cut down on exercise. Cover up the windows to shut out most of the light. The doors of this building are usually kept closed. The finishing ration consists of mostly ground grains to put on fat, but to these grains is added skim milk and a small portion of a fattening concentrate to keep the birds in good condition. Birds should be fed this fattening mash twice daily, and it should be thoroughly mixed right after each feeding and allowed to soak until the next feeding. If sweet milk is fed, be sure that it doesn't turn sour. If sour milk is used, always continue with sour milk and don't change from sweet to sour and back again. Use only enough milk so that after soaking, the consistency of the mash is like smooth porridge. There must be no lumps of dry meal. This is their last feed before getting the axe, but in modern chicken killing, the axe is no longer used. This is what is known as the Jewish cut, the method used on the Shur-Gain farm because it is conducive to better drainage. Immediately after killing, the birds are semi-scalded in water at about 126 degrees. The semi-scald loosens the feathers without harmful effect to the skin. Before the next operation, the larger wing and tail feathers are removed by hand, but most of the feathers are still on. Here is the latest that science has to offer, a mechanical plucker. Just a passing acquaintance with this thing, and that's really a striptease without music. Then a little primping before their next public appearance. Here they are, heads wrapped, ready to go to market. This method of killing and plucking is only practical where quantities are handled. On most farms, birds are killed by piercing the brain through the roof of the mouth. This loosens the feathers for dry plucking. Avoid tearing the skin and remove all pin feathers. The time spent in properly fattening your birds for market and the care exercised in killing and plucking will be well rewarded through the higher price you get for top quality. At Shur-Gain Farm, layers are housed in a two-story building capable of handling 2,000 birds. Inside the building, everything is designed for convenience and simplicity in caring for the poultry. Removable roosts are mounted over wire screens above the drop boards. A hinged door permits easy access to the drop boards and also keeps the birds away from the droppings. For convenience when cleaning and also to make certain every nook and corner is accessible, the entire section of roost and drop boards is removable. Nests are of cheap but substantial construction. They too come apart in sections for cleaning purposes. The birds enter from the end and walk along the platform behind the nests, which are well darkened. Before deciding how many birds to put in a pen, figure out your capacity. With lighter breeds, 4 square feet is all that is necessary. But heavy breeds such as this will require more room. They should have close to 5 square feet each. Before the birds are brought in, every nook and corner of the house must be thoroughly cleaned. The careful poultryman will never take a chance. Disease and insects may well have remained in the house from the previous season. First, wash down the walls, ceiling, and floors. Then follow with a thorough scrubbing using lye and water to prevent the carryover of disease. End up by spraying with a good disinfectant and pay particular attention to crevices and corners. Feed hoppers are kept well above the floor to avoid contamination from the litter. In order to maintain better sanitation and keep the litter dry, fresh water is raised on wire platforms. Start the pullets off with clean, shallow litter. If at any time the litter becomes damp, it must be changed immediately. Otherwise, the birds will catch cold and egg production will fall off. Good ventilation prevents dampness. At the Shur-Gain farm, with its modern ventilation, the litter never becomes damp, and therefore the deep litter system is practiced. Fresh straw is added from time to time and allowed to pile up, and the litter is cleaned out only at the end of the laying season. That plan works quite satisfactorily, but depends entirely upon the efficiency of the ventilating system. This is the late winter, and the litter is so dry that the hens like to dust themselves in it. To keep the laying pens cool in summer, the regular large windows at the front of the building are adjusted to suit the weather conditions. A cross flow of air is achieved during the hot weather by opening a small rear window located under the drop boards. In winter, all windows are kept closed, and ventilation is obtained by adjusting the small gates that are built in above the front windows. This is the sanctuary system, and in order to be successful, the walls and ceilings of the pens must be well insulated. The Shur-Gain laying house was built with this system of ventilation in view, but a great many of the present laying houses can easily be remodeled at small expense to include this feature. Usually, it's only necessary to insulate the walls and ceilings and install the gates above the front windows. The gates are adjusted according to outside temperature. The colder the weather outside, the smaller the opening, and vice versa. A little experience will quickly teach the operator the proper adjustment for various temperatures. Here's a sketch showing how the sanctuary type of ventilation works. Fresh air comes in through the gates, makes a complete circuit, and out the way it came in. This is a pen of leghorn pullets a few weeks after they've been brought in from the range. They are already almost on full production. These birds are happy and contented in their new sanitary surroundings. Continual culling goes on to weed out the loafers. those hens that don't pay their way. Breeding pens are carefully selected and specially fed for high hatchability. Cockerels are severely culled for breeding purposes and must be really vigorous and true to type to get into these breeding pens. The cockerel is half the flock. Therefore, particular attention should be paid to cockerel selection. Feeding tests are carried on extensively for both the laying and breeding pens. Each pen is fed from an individual bin, and accurate records are kept. Many poultrymen don't recognize the importance of fresh feed. The laying mash in these hoppers isn't fresh, and the birds aren't interested. But pour it out and replace it with fresh mash. Now see what happens. Don't let the laying mash get stale either in the feed hopper or before it gets in the hopper. Body weight of layers is carefully watched. A few hens previously banded are weighed periodically. If they're losing weight, the grain is increased. If they're getting too fat, more mash is fed. Meat, milk, fish, vegetables, and bread. These are the essentials of your everyday diet. Regardless of what the cook does to make them palatable, the chemist says you are only eating carbohydrates, proteins, minerals, and vitamins. The correct combination of these brings you health and vitality. Poultry and livestock need these same foods, and they too must get them in some other form. Their bread is obtained in the form of grain. But is that sufficient? The chemist says grain is high in carbohydrates, but low in proteins, minerals, and vitamins. How then can poultry and livestock be expected to grow, thrive, and produce on grain alone? They can't do any better than you would on a straight diet of only bread. You want a balanced meal. Your system requires it. Your health demands it. The grain grown on your own farm provides the greater part of a balanced ration for livestock and poultry, but not all of it. That small part of the feed that you cannot grow will make a tremendous difference when added to what you already have. These grains, along with a concentrate of proteins, minerals, and vitamins, make a balanced feed. In the making of a successful concentrate, the fundamental materials are meat, meal, milk powder, and vitamin D. Canada Packers Limited manufacture these, and hence they are available in Shur-Gain concentrates at first cost. To these basic materials is added the other necessary ingredients. The result is a highly concentrated mixture of proteins, minerals, and vitamins to balance the carbohydrates of the grains which can be grown on the farm. These concentrates are high in those things which are lacking in grain, but because of their potency, only a small amount need be used. In this way, your livestock and poultry can be provided with accurately balanced feed. The following are used in Shur-Gain concentrates to provide what cannot be grown on the farm. These are the proteins: meat meal, liver meal, bone meal, fish meal, tankage, copra oil meal, corn distiller's grains, oil cake meal, milk powder, soya bean meal, and malt sprouts. Here are the minerals: calcium carbonate, iron sulfate, manganese sulfate, bone meal, monocalcium phosphate, iron oxide, potassium iodide, and salt. Vitamins in Shur-Gain concentrates come from cereal grass, kelp meal, dehydrated alfalfa, buttermilk powder, fortified blended fish oils, liver meal, yeast, riboflavin, and wheat germ meal. Also for poultry fattening, corn oil, and molasses for conditioning. The materials you have just seen are combined together under the guidance of the Shur-Gain nutritional specialists in such proportions that they, along with grain, form a balanced ration. Of course, the requirements of a growing pullet, for instance, are not the same as those of a laying hen. Therefore, several lines of poultry concentrates are made, each of which is designed to do a special job. Shur-Gain concentrates have won an enviable reputation for cutting down the cost of feeding. Pioneering in the field of balanced feeding for hogs, Shur-Gain was the first concentrate in Canada to take the place of milk, and more of it is fed throughout Canada than all other hog concentrates combined. If you have skim milk available in large enough quantities, feed it along with your grain. In that case, you won't need a concentrate. But if you haven't milk, then let Shur-Gain save you money. In cattle feeding, too, Shur-Gain has a place. Very little dairy concentrate is necessary, but what a big difference a small amount will make. Shur-Gain concentrates are also available for your beef cattle and growing calves. These concentrates are made in plants at Winnipeg and Edmonton, and for eastern Canada in Toronto, Montreal, Woodstock, New Brunswick, and Kensington, Prince Edward Island. In ever-increasing quantity, concentrates are blended by skilled workmen with the aid of modern equipment, and quality is carefully guarded step by step. The Shur-Gain way of balanced feeding was developed by nutritional experts. It has been proven on the Shur-Gain experimental farm, and thousands of farmers throughout the whole of Canada have learned that these concentrates, when mixed with grain, provide a better balanced feed. Waste has been wiped out, feeding costs have been cut, production has been increased by this newer, better, cheaper way of balanced feeding. Shur-Gain saves and makes you money.